The morning air felt different here, lighter, sweeter, and somehow less alive than Earth's. Han adjusted his environment suit's settings one last time, even though he knew they were perfect. It was just a nervous habit. Another Dithworlder whispered a floating blob of green gas to its companion. I heard they can survive temperatures that would boil most species. Han pretended not to hear. After 3 years of living among aliens, he had gotten used to their whispers and stares. He checked his class schedule on his tablet and started walking toward his first class. Advanced Xenobiology. The hallways of the academy were built to accommodate species of all sizes. Han walked on the medium-sized path in the middle, while tiny creatures the size of insects used their own small walkway near the walls, and giant aliens lumbered along on their dedicated track. When he reached classroom X117, Han took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room felt quiet. 30 pairs of eyes, and other sensory organs, turned to look at him. Professor Luck, an Arvaxian with silver scales and 4 arms, stopped writing on the floating holographic board. "Ah, you must be our new student," Professor Luck said, his translator making his voice sound smooth and professional. "Please, introduce yourself to the class." Han walked to the front of the room, feeling the weight of everyone's stares. He stood straight and proud, just like his father had taught him. "Hello, I am Han from Earth. I transferred here from Seoul University of Planetary Sciences." A ripple of murmurs spread through the classroom. One student, a crystal-like being, raised what appeared to be an arm. "Yes, clicks." Professor Locke nodded. "Is it true that humans regularly survive things that would kill most species?" Clix's voice chimed like tiny bells. Han smiled. "Well, that depends. We can handle more gravity and temperature changes than some species, but we're not invincible. We just evolved on a world that demanded adaptability." Another student, this one looking like a blue octopus floating in a water-filled environmental suit, spoke up. "I heard humans eat plants that cause pain signals in other species' nervous systems just for fun. They call it spicy food." The class gasped. Han couldn't help but laugh. "That's true. Some of us enjoy the sensation of spicy food. It's not dangerous for us. It's just exciting." Professor Locke raised 2 of his 4 hands for silence. "This is exactly why having a human student join our class is so valuable. There are many misconceptions about Earth species that we can learn from." "Han, please take a seat." Han looked around and saw an empty desk near the back. As he walked toward it, the surrounding students leaned away slightly. All except one. Another human. She gave him a small wave and a sympathetic smile. Professor Locke continued his lecture about evolutionary adaptations across different gravity environments. Han took notes, but he could feel the other students stealing glances at him. Some looked scared, others curious, and a few seemed almost angry at having a Deathworlder in their class. Near the end of the lecture, Professor Locke displayed a hologram of Earth. "For next week, we will begin our study of Class 12 planets, also known as Death Worlds. And thanks to Han's presence, we will have first-hand insights into how life adapts to such extreme environments." The hologram showed Earth's active volcanoes, powerful storms, and diverse predators. The other students watched in horror as scenes of lions hunting, eagles swooping down on prey, and sharks swimming played in the air. "This is where you live," squeaked a small, fuzzy creature near the front. "It's where we all evolved," Han replied. "But our cities are very safe now. We've learned to live in harmony with our world's nature." As the class ended and students began to leave, Professor Luck called Han to stay behind. The professor looked at him with all 4 of his eyes, each a different shade of gold. "Han, I hope you understand that your presence here is more than just about your education. You're an ambassador for your species. Many of these students have never met a human before. Their only knowledge comes from stories and media reports, most of which focus on Earth's dangers." Han nodded. "I understand, Professor. I want to show them that humans are more than just survivors from a dangerous world. We're scholars, artists, and explorers too. Professor Locke's scales shifted to a lighter shade, indicating approval. Good, because next week we're having a cultural exchange presentation, and I believe you might have something very interesting to share with the class. As Han left the classroom, he already had an idea forming in his mind. If they wanted to understand humans better, he knew exactly what to bring. Though he wondered if the academy was ready for their first encounter with a cat. You're not seriously thinking about bringing Sol to class, are you? Han looked up to see Duri, another Korean student, standing over him with his arms crossed. Duri had been at the academy for 2 years already and had earned respect among the alien students for his brilliant work in xenobotany. Why not? Han asked, moving over to make space on the bench. Professor Locke said to bring something that shows our species' relationship with nature. Duri sat down, shaking his head. Most students are bringing holograms or cultural artifacts. Taz is bringing a crystal that resonates with their homeworld's magnetic field. Blura is bringing a recording of their species' traditional communion with space whales. But you want to bring an actual Earth predator. Sol is just a cat, Han said, but he knew that to most alien species, even a house cat was seen as a terrifying predator. Besides, what better way to show them that humans can form bonds with the creatures from our death world? Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chiming sound. Above them, a holographic announcement appeared in the garden. Reeve 9, dear. Cultural exchange presentations. Tomorrow, 900 hours, Xenobiology Hall. All participating students must submit safety documentation for their presentations. Han pulled out his tablet and showed Duri the forms he'd already prepared. See, I've got all the permits. Sol has his space travel certification, his behavior documentation, and his health records. I even got special permission from the Academy Board. How did you manage that? Duri asked, genuinely surprised. I sent them videos of Sol sleeping in sunbeams and playing with toys. I think they were shocked to see an Earth predator acting so cute. Just then, Gi, the human girl from their xenobiology class, approached their table. She carried what looked like a small terrarium. I couldn't help overhearing, she said. I think bringing Sol is a brilliant idea. I'm bringing this. She held up the terrarium, which contained a tiny earth garden with a butterfly chrysalis. It's about to emerge. See, Han gestured triumphantly at Gi. I'm not the only one bringing something alive. A butterfly is different from a cat, Duri argued, but his tone was softer now. The other students are already nervous around us. Remember when that floatling fainted because you sneezed? Han remembered. The poor gaseous being had solidified in shock and needed to be thawed out. That's exactly why this is important. They need to see that Earth life isn't just about survival and violence. They need to understand that we form deep bonds with the creatures of our world. As they talked, a group of alien students walked past their table, giving them a wide berth. One of them, a tall crystalline being named Clix from their xenobiology class, paused briefly. Is it true? Clix asked, their crystalline body shimmering with nervous energy. Are you really bringing an Earth hunter to class? A domestic cat, Han corrected gently. They're small companions that humans have lived with for thousands of years. Would you like to see a picture? Clix hesitated, then floated closer. Han pulled up a photo of Sol on his tablet, an orange tabby cat curled up in a patch of sunlight, looking completely harmless and peaceful. But it has sharp points, Clix observed, noting Sol's visible claws as he stretched in the photo. And killing teeth. Those help him eat his food and play with his toys, Han explained. He's never hurt anyone. In fact, he spends most of his time sleeping and asking for belly rubs. What is belly rub? Another alien student had drawn closer, curiosity overtaking fear. Han smiled. This was exactly what he'd hoped for. Genuine interest in questions instead of blind fear. Tomorrow, I'll show you. Sol loves meeting new people, and I think you'll be surprised by how gentle Earth creatures can be. After the alien students left, Dury sighed in defeat. You're really doing this, aren't you? Well, you'll need help setting everything up. I can bring some of my xenobiology equipment to monitor Saul's vital signs, show them how calm and content he is around other species. And I'll help explain the history of cat domestication, Jai offered. It's actually a fascinating story of cooperation between species. Han felt a warm surge of gratitude for his fellow humans. Tomorrow would be a big day, not just for him and Sol, but potentially for human-alien relations at the Academy. As he finished his lunch, he sent a quick message to his quarters where Sol was currently napping. Get ready, buddy. Tomorrow, you're going to make history. What Han didn't know was that news of his planned presentation had already reached the Academy board, and not everyone was as enthusiastic about having an Earth predator on campus, even a small, domesticated one. Tomorrow would prove to be more eventful than any of them expected. That evening, Han sat in his Academy quarters, watching Sol chase a laser pointer dot across the floor. The memory of how they first met came flooding back to him. 3 years ago, on a rainy night in Seoul, Han had been walking home from his planetary science studies when he heard a tiny meow coming from a soggy cardboard box. Inside, he found a small orange kitten, wet and shivering. Without hesitation, he tucked the kitten inside his jacket and took it home. You were so small back then, Han said to Sol, who was now a healthy adult cat. Sol responded by jumping into his lap and purring loudly. The sound always reminded Han of a tiny engine. His room's communication screen lit up with an incoming call. It was his mother back on Earth. How are the preparations going? She asked after they exchanged greetings. Is Sol ready for his big debut? I think so, Han replied, scratching Sol behind the ears. But some of the alien students are really scared. You should see how they react when I tell them he's a predator. His mother laughed. Show them the video of Sol running away from the vacuum cleaner, some predator. As if understanding them, Sol stretched and yawned, showing his sharp teeth. To Han, they were just part of his beloved pet's features. But to the alien students, those same teeth represented everything terrifying about Earth's wildlife. A knock at his door interrupted their conversation. It was Dury, carrying a large box of equipment. Sorry, Mrs. Kim, Dury said, waving at the screen. I need to borrow your son to test some things. After saying goodbye to his mother, Han helped Dury unpack the equipment. There were small sensors to monitor Sol's heart rate and stress levels, and a holographic projector to show Sol's biological readings to the class. These will prove that Sol is calm and happy around other species, Dury explained, setting up a test sensor. See, his heart rate is totally normal right now. Sol watched them work with lazy interest from his perch on Han's bed. Occasionally, he batted at the floating holographic numbers that showed his vital signs. Do you remember the first time you met Sol? Han asked Dury. Dury laughed. How could I forget? I was just like the other Academy students, nervous about being near an Earth predator. Then this little orange furball jumped into my lap and fell asleep. That's when I realized how wrong the stories about Earth creatures were. They were interrupted by another knock. This time it was Gi, carrying ancient Earth history files on her tablet. I found some great information about cat domestication, she said excitedly. Did you know that cats basically domesticated themselves? They started living near humans because we stored grain, which attracted mice. The cats caught the mice, and humans realized this was helpful, so they started leaving food out for the cats. Sol perked up at the word food and jumped down to investigate Gia's bag. See, some things never change, Han said, watching Sol nose around hopefully for treats. Even after thousands of years, cats still know how to charm humans into feeding them. Gia pulled out a small bag of cat treats she had synthesized in the Academy's food lab. Sol's purring grew louder as she offered him one. The alien students need to see this, she said, recording Sol's gentle way of taking the treat. Earth's creatures aren't just about hunting and killing. There's so much more to them. They spent the next hour running tests with the sensors and practicing how to present Sol to the class. The cat seemed to enjoy all the attention, moving from person to person for pets and treats. The hard part will be getting him to the classroom, Dury said. The hallways will be full of students tomorrow morning. I've got that covered, Han said, pulling out a special carrier. It was made of clear, strong material so Sol could see out, but it had shields that could be activated to keep him calm if needed. The Academy approved this design specifically for tomorrow. As they finished their preparations, Han felt more confident about their plan. Yes, bringing Sol to class was a risk, but it was an important one. How could aliens ever understand humans if they didn't understand humanity's connection to Earth's other creatures? That night, as Han lay in bed with Sol curled up next to him, he thought about tomorrow's presentation. He knew it could either break down barriers between species or reinforce every fear the aliens had about Earth life. But as he listened to Sol's peaceful purring, he knew he had made the right choice. What he didn't know was that tomorrow would test not just the aliens' courage, but Sol's patience in ways none of them expected. The morning of the cultural exchange presentation arrived with an unusual buzz of activity in the Galactic Academy. Han stood in his room, double-checking Sol's carrier one last time. The orange cat sat inside calmly, cleaning his paws and seeming completely unaware of his important role in today's events. "Ready for your big day, buddy?" Han asked, offering Sol a final treat through the carrier's feeding slot. The cat accepted it with his usual gentle manner. Han's communication device buzzed. It was a message from Dury. "You need to get here quickly. There's a situation." When Han arrived at the classroom carrying Sol's carrier, he found a crowd of alien students gathered outside. Their voices, translated through various devices, filled the air with worried chatter. Dury and GA pushed through the crowd to reach him. Someone leaked information about Sol to the whole school. GA explained quickly. They're calling him a deadly Earth predator and saying he could kill everyone in the class. Han looked through the carrier's clear walls at Sol, who had fallen asleep during the short walk. Some deadly predator. "It's worse than that," Dury added. A group of students filed a complaint with the Academy Board. They're trying to get the presentation canceled. Inside the classroom, Professor Locke was attempting to calm a particularly upset group of students. The professor's scales had turned a pale gray color, indicating stress. "But Professor," a floating gas-form student named Mist was saying, "Earth predators can move faster than most species can react. Even their smallest hunters have natural weapons. And they have enhanced killing abilities." Added clicks, their crystal body flickering with anxiety patterns. "I researched Earth cats. They can see in near darkness and track movement with incredible precision." Professor Locke raised all four hands for silence. "Students, please. The Academy Board has approved this presentation. All safety measures are in place." "Safety measures?" A blob-like student quivered. "What safety measures could possibly protect us from an Earth hunter?" Han stepped forward, still holding Sol's carrier. The crowd parted quickly, leaving a wide empty space around him. "Maybe you should see for yourself what you're afraid of." He held up the carrier where everyone could see inside. Sol had woken up and was now yawning, showing his tiny teeth. Several students gasped. Others moved even further away. "This is Sol," Han said calmly. "He weighs about 4 kilograms. Yes, he has claws and teeth. Yes, he can see well in the dark. But he's not a hunter. He's a companion. He's been living with humans for thousands of years." "But why would you keep a predator as a companion?" asked a tentacled student near the back. GA stepped forward to stand beside Han. "The same reason some of your species keep symbiotic creatures. Cats and humans help each other. They give us companionship, and we give them care and love." "Love? For a predator?" Clix's crystal body chimed with confusion. "Watch," Han said. He put his finger against the carrier's clear wall. Sol immediately rubbed his head against it from the inside, purring loudly enough for everyone to hear. The alien students fell silent, observing this unexpected behavior. Professor Locke's scales shifted to a more neutral blue color as the tension in the room decreased slightly. "The presentation will continue as planned," Professor Locke announced, "but I will add extra safety protocols. We will create a clear barrier field between the demonstration area and the student seating. Will this help everyone feel more comfortable?" There were nervous murmurs of agreement. As the students began filing into the classroom, Dury helped Han set up the sensor equipment while Jia arranged her historical documentation. "That was close," Dury whispered. "For a moment, I thought they were going to succeed in shutting us down." "They're just scared," Han replied, watching Sol doze off again in his carrier. "But fear comes from not understanding. That's why this is so important." Professor Locke approached their setup area, his scales now showing patterns of both concern and curiosity. "Han, are you certain about this? Once we begin, there's no going back. The whole academy will be watching." Han looked at Sol, then at his friends, and finally at the nervous alien students taking their seats behind the newly activated barrier field. "I'm sure, Professor. It's time they learned that not everything from Earth is about survival and violence. Some things are about trust and friendship." As the final preparations were made, none of them noticed the small maintenance drone malfunctioning near the classroom's environmental controls. The day was about to become more exciting than any of them had planned. The xenobiology classroom was packed. News of the Earth Predator presentation had spread throughout the academy, drawing students and even a few professors from other departments. They all crowded behind the protective barrier field, their various sensory organs fixed on the carrier that held Sol. Han stood at the front of the room, trying to stay calm. The environmental controls were acting strange, making the room slightly warmer than usual. He noticed Sol stirring in his carrier, probably sensing the change in temperature. "For our next presentation," Professor Locke announced, his scales showing a mix of professional blue and nervous green. "Han will demonstrate the unique relationship between humans and one of Earth's domestic predator species." Several gasps echoed through the room as Han reached for the carrier's door. Dury activated the vital sign monitors, and their holographic displays sprang to life above the carrier. Ga stood ready with her historical data. "This is Sol," Han said clearly, opening the carrier door. "He is what we call a house cat." Sol stepped out cautiously, his orange fur catching the classroom's light. His tail was held high with a slight curl at the tip, a sign that he was curious and confident. The vital sign monitors showed his heart rate was perfectly normal. A collective squeak of fear came from the assembled aliens as Sol stretched, showing his claws briefly before retracting them. Some students at the back began to float higher, as if trying to get further away despite the barrier. "Notice his size," Jia pointed out, trying to ease the tension. "Sol weighs about the same as a standard data pad. His claws are smaller than most eating utensils." But the alien students weren't looking at Sol's size. Their attention was fixed on his graceful movements, the way his eyes reflected light, and especially his teeth when he yawned. To them, every motion screamed predator. "These readings are interesting," Professor Locke said, studying the holographic displays. "The creature's vital signs indicate it is completely relaxed. No hunting instincts are active." Sol walked to the edge of the presentation area, sniffing curiously. A crystalline student named Clicks made a high-pitched chiming sound of fear. To everyone's surprise, Sol sat down and started grooming his paw, completely ignoring the scared audience. "As you can see," Han explained, "Sol is not interested in hunting. He's just curious about his new surroundings. In fact, he pulled out a small toy mouse. This is what he considers prey now." Han tossed the toy, and Sol immediately chased after it. The aliens watched in fascination as this supposedly deadly predator pounced on a clearly fake mouse, batting it around playfully. "Impossible," whispered a gaseous student. Earth predators are supposed to be constantly aggressive. That's a common misconception, Jia said. Cats actually spend most of their time sleeping and playing. They hunt only when hungry, and domestic cats like Saul don't need to hunt at all because humans provide their food. The room's temperature continued to rise slowly. Saul, noticing the change, found a sunny spot and laid down, rolling onto his back. His belly was exposed, a position of complete vulnerability. Is it dying?" asked a concerned blob-like student. Han laughed softly. "No, he's just asking for belly rubs. It's how cats show they trust someone." Trust. The word echoed through several translation devices. The concept of a predator showing trust seemed to confuse many of the aliens. Professor Locke's scales had shifted to a curious purple color. "Han, would you demonstrate this belly rub interaction?" Han knelt beside Saul and gently scratched his belly. Saul's purring filled the room, and the vital sign monitors showed waves of pleasure hormones being released in his brain. The alien students watched in amazement as this supposedly dangerous creature melted into a puddle of contentment. "The sound it's making," Clicks observed, moving slightly closer to the barrier. "It's not a growl. That's called purring," Dury explained. "Cats do it when they're happy and comfortable. It's actually been proven to have healing properties." The temperature in the room was now noticeably warm. Sweat appeared on Han's forehead, and Saul had stopped purring to pant slightly. Something was definitely wrong with the environmental controls. "Perhaps we should take a brief break to adjust the room settings," Professor Locke suggested, noticing the discomfort. But before anyone could move, the malfunctioning maintenance drone near the environmental controls sparked. The barrier field flickered once, twice, and then disappeared completely. There was a moment of absolute silence as the aliens and Saul stared at each other with no barrier between them. What happened next would change everyone's understanding of Earth's creatures forever. The moment the barrier field disappeared, chaos erupted in the classroom. Several floating students shot up to the ceiling. Others tried to squeeze themselves against the walls. A few even attempted to hide behind their desks. The room filled with the sounds of various species' panic responses, whistles, chimes, and bubbling noises. Saul, startled by the sudden movement and noise, did the most cat-like thing possible. He walked to the nearest sunny spot and laid down for a nap. The panic slowly turned to confusion. The deadly Earth predator was sleeping. "Everyone, please remain calm," Professor Locke said, his scales shifting between worried gray and surprised yellow. "As you can see, Saul is not displaying any aggressive behavior." Han stayed perfectly still, knowing any sudden movement might spook either Saul or the alien students. The vital sign monitors were still working, showing Saul's heart rate remaining peaceful and steady. "Look at the readings," Dury pointed out. "Even with all this excitement, he's completely relaxed." A small fuzzy student named Palm, who had been hiding under a desk, peeked out cautiously. But why isn't it attacking? We're all potential prey size to it." Jia stepped forward slowly. "That's what we've been trying to explain. Saul doesn't see you as prey. He's domesticated. That means thousands of years of living with humans have changed his instincts." Changed instincts. Clix's crystal body sparkled with interest. "Is that possible?" "It's more than possible," Han explained. "It's what happens when species learn to trust each other. Saul's ancestors might have been hunters, but he's never had to hunt. Humans provide his food, shelter, and love. In return, he gives us companionship." As if to demonstrate this point, Saul rolled over and stretched, showing his belly again. Several alien students made sounds of surprise. "That's a defensive position for most species," Professor Locke observed. "Why would it expose its vital organs?" "It's a sign of trust," Han said. "When cats show their bellies, they're saying they feel safe. They know they don't need to protect themselves." The room grew quiet as the aliens processed this information. The temperature was still uncomfortably warm, but no one seemed to notice anymore. They were too focused on Saul's peaceful behavior. Then something unexpected happened. Palm, the small fuzzy student, took a tiny step forward. Could I maybe look closer? Palm asked, their fur trembling slightly. From what my sensors tell me, this Earth soul, is about my size. Han smiled encouragingly. Of course, just move slowly and let him see you coming. The entire class watched in tense silence as Palm crept closer to Sol. The cat opened one eye lazily, looking at the approaching alien with mild interest. The vital signs are still completely normal, Dury announced, watching the monitors. Sol is curious but calm. When Palm was about a meter away, Sol did something that made every alien in the room freeze. He started purring. The sound filled the quiet classroom. What's that vibration? Palm asked, fascination overcoming fear. That's purring, Jie explained. It means he likes you. He's trying to tell you he's friendly. Encouraged by this, Palm moved a bit closer. Sol lifted his head slightly, sniffing in Palm's direction. Then, to everyone's amazement, Sol rolled over and playfully batted at one of his own toys nearby. He wants to play. Palm's voice was filled with wonder. More students began to inch forward, curiosity finally winning over fear. Even Clix floated a bit closer, their crystalline body reflecting the sunlight in patterns that caught Sol's attention. Amazing, Professor Locke said, all four of his eyes wide with interest. In all my years of xenobiology studies, I've never seen anything quite like this. An Earth predator choosing to play instead of hunt. That's because Sol doesn't see himself as a predator, Han explained. To him, everyone in this room is just a potential friend. As if to prove Han's point, Sol stood up, stretched, and casually walked over to Palm. Before anyone could react, he rubbed against Palm's fuzzy side, marking the alien student as part of his family group. Instead of panicking, Palm made a sound that their species use to express joy. It's so soft and warm. Other students began asking questions all at once. Can I touch it too? Does it always make that happy vibration? Will it play with me next? The fear in the room had transformed into genuine interest. Even the malfunctioning environmental controls seemed less important now. But as Han watched Sol charm his way through the crowd of alien students, he noticed something concerning. The maintenance drone was starting to spark more seriously. The cat seemed to enjoy all the attention, moving from student to student, allowing each one to experience his friendly nature. Han watched proudly as Sol showed his true personality. The vital sign monitors still floated above, showing everyone that the cat remained calm and happy. But Han couldn't ignore the increasing sparks from the malfunctioning maintenance drone near the room's environmental controls. Professor, Han said quietly to Professor Locke, I think we should do something about that drone. Before the professor could respond, the drone made a loud popping sound. The room's temperature jumped several degrees higher, and the ventilation system began making strange noises. Sol's ears perked up at the sound. The vital sign monitors showed a slight increase in his heart rate, not from fear, but from discomfort in the rising heat. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss how Earth creatures adapt to different environments, Professor Locke said, trying to turn the situation into a teaching moment. His scales had taken on an orange tint of concern. Yes, Han agreed, grateful for the professor's quick thinking. Cats are very good at adapting to their surroundings. They can be comfortable in many different temperatures, but they do have their limits. Jie stepped forward, pulling up some historical data on her tablet. In fact, cats first bonded with humans in hot desert regions on Earth. They learned to live in all kinds of places, from cold mountains to warm beaches. The alien students watched as Sol moved away from the sunny spot he had been enjoying earlier, seeking a cooler place in the shade. His behavior was proving their points about adaptation. Fascinating, said Clix, their crystal body glinting with interest. It's making conscious decisions about its environment, just like a sentient being. That's right, Dury said, checking the vital sign monitors. Cats are very intelligent. They understand cause and effect, and they're excellent problem solvers. A small group of gaseous students floated closer, their translator devices humming. But if Earth predators are this intelligent and adaptable, why aren't they more dangerous? Our studies always showed them as mindless hunters. Han smiled. Because intelligence means understanding more than just hunting. Sol knows he doesn't need to hunt. He has learned that friendship and cooperation are better than competition. Pom, who had become quite attached to Sol, raised a fuzzy appendage. Like how my species learned to work with the mineral processors on our home world. Exactly, G.A. said excitedly. Different species can help each other. Cats helped humans by keeping harmful rodents away from our food storage. In return, we gave them safe places to live and regular meals. Professor Locke's scales shifted to a deep purple of academic interest. This changes many of our theories about Earth's ecosystem. We always thought it was purely based on survival of the strongest. That's part of it, Han admitted, but Earth's nature is more complex. Yes, there is competition, but there's also cooperation. Many species work together to survive better than they could alone. The drone sparked again, and the temperature rose even higher. Sol was now panting slightly, showing signs of discomfort. Several alien students noticed this change in his behavior. Is Sol okay? Pom asked worriedly. His breathing pattern has changed. He's too warm, Han explained. Cats can handle heat, but this is getting uncomfortable for him. We should. Before Han could finish his sentence, the drone made a final loud pop. Smoke began pouring from its circuits, and the room's temperature control system went completely haywire. The temperature started rising rapidly. Sol stood up, his tail twitching with anxiety. The vital sign monitors showed his increasing discomfort. But what happened next surprised everyone in the room. Instead of panicking or becoming aggressive, as the aliens might have expected from an Earth predator under stress, Sol walked calmly to Han and meowed softly, asking for help in the way domestic cats had learned to do over thousands of years of living with humans. "Look at that," Professor Locke said, his scales now a bright yellow of amazement. Even under stress, it seeks cooperation rather than conflict. The alien students watched in fascination as Han picked up Sol, holding him close to keep him calm. The cat's vital signs immediately began to stabilize, despite the rising heat in the room. "This is what we've been trying to show you," Han said, scratching Sol's ears gently. "Earth isn't just about survival of the strongest. It's also about species learning to trust and help each other." But as smoke continued to pour from the drone, it became clear that their lesson might be cut short unless someone could fix the environmental controls quickly. The room was getting dangerously hot for several species, not just Sol. The situation in the classroom was getting worse. Smoke from the broken drone filled the air, and the temperature continued to rise. Several alien students were showing signs of distress, especially those species sensitive to heat. "We need to evacuate," Professor Locke announced, his scales now a deep red of emergency. "Everyone, please move to the exit in an orderly fashion." But there was a problem. The classroom's automatic safety system had activated, sealing the main door to contain the potential fire hazard. The emergency override panel was located right next to the smoking drone. Han looked at the panel, then at Sol in his arms. The cat was still calm despite the chaos, trusting his human completely. An idea formed in Han's mind. "Pom," Han called to the fuzzy alien student who had first befriended Sol. "Could you help me? Sol needs somewhere safe to stay while I try to reach that panel." Pom moved forward without hesitation, extending their fuzzy appendages. "I'll watch over him." The other alien students watched in amazement as Han carefully handed Sol to Pom. The cat settled comfortably in Pom's fur, purring despite the heat. The vital sign monitors showed that Sol's trust in his human extended to those his human trusted. "Amazing," whispered Clicks. "The Earth predator shows no fear or aggression, even in danger." Han moved carefully toward the smoking drone. The heat near it was intense, and sparks flew from its damaged circuits. Professor Locke's scales paled with worry. Han, be careful. The temperature near that drone is dangerous even for a Dithworlder. But Han had noticed something others hadn't. The drone's malfunction had created a small electrical field that most species couldn't safely approach. However, humans, having evolved on a planet with frequent electrical storms, had natural resistance to such fields. This is why we survived on Earth, Han explained as he worked. Not because we're stronger or more aggressive, but because we adapted to handle dangerous situations. We learned to solve problems instead of just running from them. The alien students watched as Han carefully reached through the sparks to access the emergency panel. Some gasped when small electrical charges jumped to his hands, but Han remained focused. Meanwhile, Saul had become the center of attention again. Despite the crisis, he was helping keep several younger alien students calm by letting them pet him and listening to his purring. The Earth creature. It's helping reduce stress responses in the younglings, Professor Locke observed, his scales showing patterns of deep understanding. This goes against everything we thought we knew about Earth species. That's what pets do, Jai-A explained, helping a crystal student stay cool with a portable fan. They comfort us, help us stay calm, and show us that different species can care for each other. Duray pointed to the vital sign monitors that were still working. Look at Saul's readings. Even in this crisis, his primary response is to help others feel safe. This is what thousands of years of living with humans has created, a partnership based on mutual care. Finally, Han managed to override the safety system. The door slid open, bringing in cooler air from the hallway. As students began to exit, news of what had happened spread quickly through the academy. Within minutes, the maintenance team arrived to deal with the broken drone. But the real story wasn't about the technical malfunction. It was about how an Earth predator had helped keep everyone calm during the crisis. Later that day, in the Academy's main gathering area, students from various species crowded around to hear the story. Many couldn't believe that a creature from Earth, supposedly the most dangerous planet known, had shown such gentle and helpful behavior. "Can we see Saul again?" asked a group of young crystal students. "Will he visit other classes?" inquired some gas-form beings. "Could we learn more about Earth's other domestic animals?" Several blob-like students wondered. Professor Locke, his scales now a bright blue of satisfaction, approached Han. "Your presentation didn't go as planned, but it achieved something far more valuable. You've shown us that Earth's creatures aren't just about survival. They're about cooperation, adaptation, and trust." Han smiled, watching Sol now comfortably napping in a special cooling pod provided by the Academy Science Department. The cat had become something of a celebrity, with students taking turns to quietly observe him. "Maybe now," Han said, "everyone will understand that being from Earth doesn't just mean being dangerous. It means being able to adapt, to form bonds, and to help others, even those who are very different from us." What nobody realized yet was that Saul's influence would soon extend far beyond just one classroom. The next day would bring changes to the academy that nobody could have predicted. The room had been specially designed with comfortable areas for all species and perfect environmental controls. "I still can't believe they made Saul the official Academy Comfort Ambassador," Dury said, helping a small crystal student toss a toy for the cat to chase. Indeed, the Academy Board had created this new position after seeing how Saul's presence helped students from different species feel more relaxed and open to learning. The cat now had his own schedule of classroom visits and stress relief sessions. "Look at this," Jai-A said, showing them her tablet. Applications from Earth students have increased by 300% since news about Saul spread to other academies. They're calling it the Saul effect, when fear turns into understanding. Professor Locke entered the room, his scales glowing with the bright green of pride. "Han, you'll be pleased to know that the Academy has approved our new course, Earth Species Cooperation and Coexistence. We'll be teaching students about the true nature of Earth's creatures, not just their survival aspects. Han smiled, watching Sol give gentle headbutts to a worried-looking blob student who had an important exam later. The student's stress indicators visibly decreased as they petted the cat's soft fur. "Remember how scared everyone was that first day?" Pom asked, now one of Sol's regular caretakers when Han was busy with classes. "Now look at us. We even have a waiting list for Sol's comfort sessions." The changes weren't just limited to the Academy. News had spread throughout the galactic scientific community about the dangerous Earth predator who helped alien students stay calm and focused. Research teams were now studying other Earth pets, wondering what other misconceptions they might have about Earth's creatures. "The best part," Han said, "is that people are finally understanding that being strong doesn't mean being dangerous. Earth's creatures survived not just because they were tough, but because they learned to help each other." As if to demonstrate this point, Sol noticed a young gas-form student who was floating nervously near the ceiling, unsure about joining the group. The cat sat beneath the student, looking up with gentle eyes and purring loudly enough for the student to feel the vibrations. Slowly, the nervous student floated down to join the others. "That's what I love about Sol," Jai observed. "He doesn't see different species. He just sees friends he hasn't met yet." Professor Luck's scales shifted to a pattern that indicated deep thought. "Perhaps that's what we should have been studying all along. Not just how species survive on their own, but how they survive together." The Academy Board had also made another surprising decision. They were now accepting applications for other Earth pets to visit the Academy. Several students had already submitted requests to bring their dogs, rabbits, and even a particularly friendly hamster. "Next semester is going to be interesting," Dury laughed. "Imagine all the Earth pets teaching aliens about friendship." Han watched as Sol moved from student to student, spreading comfort and joy wherever he went. The vital sign monitors, now a permanent fixture in the integration center, showed how the cat's presence helped reduce stress levels in every species he encountered. "You know what's really amazing?" Han said. Sol didn't have to learn how to do this. He just needed the chance to show everyone who he really was. A small crowd had gathered at the window outside the integration center. It was a common sight now. Students and professors taking breaks from their work to watch Sol interact with different species. The cat had become a living lesson in breaking down barriers and overcoming prejudices. Professor Luck placed one of his forehands on Han's shoulder. "You've started something remarkable here, Han. Because of you and Sol, the next generation of galactic scientists will understand Earth and its creatures in a completely new way." As the day drew to a close, Sol curled up in his favorite spot, a special bed that had been designed to be comfortable for both him and any alien students who wanted to sit nearby. Around him, students from a dozen different species studied, talked, and laughed together, no longer afraid of the small Earth predator who had changed their world. Han looked at his sleeping cat and smiled. They had come here to show that Earth creatures weren't just about survival and danger. They had ended up teaching the galaxy that sometimes the strongest beings are the ones who choose to be gentle, and that true power lies not in the ability to harm, but in the capacity to bring others together. In the end, Sol had proven that the most important adaptation any species could make wasn't growing sharper claws or stronger defenses. It was learning to open their hearts to those who were different from themselves.